Okay. I'm Shanna Barton. This is my persuasive speech, Food Insecurity and What We Can Do to Help. According to No Kid Hungry, an organization that aims to end childhood hunger, the latest statistics suggest that as many as 9 million children in the U.S. live in homes that are food insecure. That's 9 million kids every day living in homes that don't have enough food to go around. 9 million kids likely to go hungry at night because of lack of access to food in the home. With this speech, I hope to discuss to you the main causes leading to food insecurity and come to some solutions that can lead to positive changes in some of the lives of these people. Time magazine reports in an article written by Lily Rothman titled Food Security, Hunger in America, A Turning Point, that food insecurity has been a problem since the Great Depression in the U.S. in the 1930s. However, after the Second World War ended and led to widespread prosperity, the topic was thought to have been eradicated by many. The problem of food insecurity across the U.S. remained hushed until the late 1960s when President Nixon was pushed to declare it a national emergency as 15 million Americans were facing food insecurity. Since then, there have been many programs implemented to aid in helping decrease food insecurity. Over the course of the last 60 years, and most recently, there have been announced cuts coming to some of those programs. With an article published on foodtank.com titled Emergency SNAP Benefits Set to Expire, reporting that Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program benefits expected to decrease for millions of Americans as nearly March due to cuts in the 2023 Omnibus Spending Bill. Anti-hunger advocates say that these changes will accelerate the looming hunger cliff. Specifically stating, these cuts will affect those in the lowest poverty levels leading to an even bigger problem for children who are already having a hard time finding food at home. With less government assistance, many families will lose access to the same amount of food that they currently have and will fall further into food insecurity. The number one leading cause of food insecurity across the U.S. is poverty. This is set from the living wage being set too low to support a family. According to Cornell law, the purpose of the minimum wage in the first place was to stabilize post-depression economy, protect the workers of the labor force, and make sure that the minimum wage was designed to create a minimum standard of living to protect the health and well-being of employees. Over time, since minimum wage was set, inflation has increased the prices on everything. Yet, the minimum wage has not raised to substantially keep up. It now costs more than what most people make in an hour to buy a baker's dozen of eggs. And this would be next to impossible for someone living under the poverty line. Food insecurity isn't just lacking access to food in general, it's also lack of access to nutritious food. When someone is already living below the poverty line, just making enough to keep food in the house, the quality of food can come into question. It costs less to pick up a case of ramen than it does to fill the fridge with, say, sandwich meat, cheese, bread, vegetables, and fruit. This leads to poor quality of food to be chosen, and in turn causes health conditions such as diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, etc. Another cause of food insecurity is a lack of access to reliable transportation to and from places to buy food. Many people living further away from supermarkets, relying on convenience stores that, according to an article titled Food Insecurity on the health.gov website, may have higher food prices, lower quality food, and the variety of foods that supermarkets and grocery stores have. That same article also states that residents are at risk for food insecurity in neighborhoods where transportations are limited and travel distances to stores is greater. There are fewer supermarkets, lack of access to public transportation, a public personal vehicle, it all limits access to food. Finally, systemic racism affects the minority groups in our country, leading directly to food insecurity, much like other problems that we face in the United States. According to an article titled Examining the Impact of Structural Racism on Food Insecurity, Implications for Addressing Racial Ethical Disparities, by Angela Odoms-Young, studies have shown that racial discrimination limits people of color's access to education, employment opportunities, resulting in social and economic consequences that would lead to food insecurity. The sad reality is, when you don't receive the education you deserve and you find it hard to find access to jobs that pay you high enough you end up finding yourself with a lack of access to nutritious food. On a large scale, I believe that we as a country should be looking highly into raising the minimum wage in order to allow for less poverty across the United States. This has been a point of contention for political parties, but until every person in our country can afford to buy food, we won't even begin to touch the problem of food insecurity. There's no reason that in a highly civilized country we should have people going to bed hungry. Minimum wage should be higher so that citizens can not only survive, but thrive. On a local scale, I feel like we should be implementing programs for reduced cost or buy donation food drive programs that can bring food directly to the people that are suffering the most. This would allow people access to food that's better quality without having to worry about finding transportation to and from the store or necessarily worrying about the cost of the food in the first place. Personally, I could be more intentional about making sure that those close to me have access to nutritious food that will not only fill them but nourish them. This might mean helping a neighbor pick up groceries if they can't afford them or make it to the store, or offer to purchase groceries for those I know that are struggling. We must come together as a community to solve problems like this. It really starts with us and the neighborhoods we live in and the places we grow. In conclusion, food insecurity has been a widespread problem in America since the Great Depression, but it hasn't always been taken seriously. In the last few years, the conversation of cutting government assistance for buying groceries has reignited the argument against food insecurity. Ultimately, poverty, lack of transportation, and intentional racism leads to food insecurity on a grand scale. And until we begin to make strides as a nation to combat our low minimum wage, begin to support our community, and begin to take personal accountability for helping those around us, we will never get anywhere close to ending food insecurity as a country. Having heard my speech this far, you should have an idea of what food insecurity is, what causes it, and what we can do to combat it. 9 million children should not be going to bed hungry at night. There's no reason in a modern society we should be allowing ourselves to continue this cycle. We have to start somewhere, and supporting those 9 million children sounds like a good start.